Welcome, students, to the official first lecture of VA 105. Today we're starting with surgical preparation and assisting. My name is Mrs. B. I'm your primary online instructor, and I will be going over a brief online orientation for the course, as well as getting into all of the first day things going into your term projects. We will get into some lecture materials today as well. First things first, I do want to verify that everybody has access to this course. They have their login. It's working, especially for my new students that are here. So please make sure that you have access. You have a login. You are able to see this module under your My Courses list. When you log into the module, when you click into where it says My Courses, you should be looking at this course right here, VA 105, June 25, Surgical Preparation and Assisting. Again, if you don't see this course, please let me know ASAP so we can get you enrolled. In addition to being enrolled in the course, I have also enrolled all of you in our group chat. You've probably seen me posting in the group chat already today. I was posting yesterday to the day before. So we use a messaging function here on LMS to send group messages, and you can also send private messages through the messenger. So where you can find that, it's really, really easy. In the upper right-hand corner next to your icon, there's a little downward arrow. You can click on that downward arrow and this drop-down window will pop up. If you click into where it says messages, it will bring you directly to the messenger tab. It looks like this. In this messenger tab, again, I want to confirm that everybody has access. I've enrolled everybody in this group chat, RVS VA 10525. I do separate the group chats by their campus just to minimize any confusion. We do have 3 campuses here at ACHT. We have a Riverside campus, which is all of y'all. We have a Huntington Park campus and a Santa Ana campus. So there is a separate chat for just my Riverside students. Again, if you do not see this under your groups, it'll be under groups for you. Please let me know so that I can get you added. As you can see, I've been posting in it every single day. I will let you know exactly what your class is, where you need to be, your assignments that are due every day. And I also post things like your schedule in here. I post announcements, reminders, anything you might need to know. All of that important information is going to be found here. So I post in it every single day before we start our classes. So every single morning, you'll see a message pop up. Oh, Amory, you're not enrolled in that. Okay, we'll make sure that you are. I'll make a note of that. And when we go on our break, I will double check your enrollment. Thank you for letting me know. And again, if anybody else is noticing they don't see this group chat, please let me know so that I can check up for you as well. But like I was saying, this is a chat that we use. Us instructors will post in it, myself and your lab instructors. If there's any announcements, reminders, if there's any class cancellations, which it doesn't happen often. But if for some reason a lab is canceled or a lecture is canceled, we're going to be posting it in here as well. Now, this has all of the Riverside students enrolled in here. There's 35 or 34 people enrolled in this group chat. So you can also put things in this group chat like general class questions if you had a question about the homework or you wanted to know where the key terms were, something along those lines, you wanted to know about a deadline. That's a general class question and that can absolutely go in this group chat. However, if you need to contact me privately because of personal reasons, essentially if you are going to be late or you're going to be absent, 34 other people don't need to know why you're going to be absent today. So if you're going to message me for something private, please don't put it in the group chat. You can easily search me in the upper left-hand corner here in the search bar. You can type my name to search me. I can't search myself, so I'm just going to search Miss Flores. That's your lab instructor. Actually, I'll look up the full name. So you can just type the person that you're looking for and they will show up as long as they're enrolled in your course. And then you can come in here and you can message them. You can write a message to them and send it off. Again, this is a great way to private message me or to private message your lab instructor. If you're going to be tardy, which is late, or you're going to be absent, you have to notify us of those absences or tardies. It is your responsibility as a student to notify your instructor if you're not going to be in class. So just be aware of that. Also, if you're going to be absent, really great to have a medical note or some kind of documentation to go with that for your makeup sessions. Again, most important thing is to be reaching out to us. If it's an online day, you'll reach out to me. If it's a lab day, you will reach out to your lab instructor because that's who records your attendance on those days. But very simple, very easy, user-friendly to use. There are other ways to contact me. Again, LMS Messenger, I'd probably recommend it over any other method just because when you message me on here, it also sends me an email. So it kind of like notifies me in two different places. LMS messages is kind of the first message that I look at when I log in for the day as well. So I do prefer that way. However, if you click into the module, we're going to go back into 105. We're going to look at some of the sections over here under contents. If you go past week 4, right below where it says week 4, it says schedule and contact information. And this tab has a lot of really important information for your class. First off, it has my information. I have my email listed here. I even have a phone number that you can text or call me off of. And I have my office hours that are listed here as well. It's important to note that I work split shifts a majority of the week. So be aware that I don't work, I work an 8 to 5 on Friday, and sometimes I do on Thursdays, but a majority of my days I'm working 8 a.m. to 12 and then 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's because there's AM and PM sessions. So just be aware of that if you're messaging me and it's like in the afternoon and you're like, oh, Mrs. B is ignoring me. Why isn't she getting back to me? It's very possible that I'm working a split shift and that I'm not in the office. So you can always double check my hours here. If they do change, I will update y'all. But that's currently where my schedule is. If you're trying to contact me and I'm not in the office, please still do contact me. Just know that I will not be replying to you until I'm clocked in again and I'm back in my office. I don't work outside of my working hours. I'm not allowed to. So please just be aware of that. And I also want y'all to be aware, I'm the only online instructor for the VA program, and there's about 86 students in the program right now. That's a lot for one instructor. So please be aware that I am usually flooded with messages, with emails, all the time. So I ask my students to be patient on my reply time. I try my best to reply same day, but sometimes it does take me a day to get back. So please just be aware of that, that sometimes it does have a little bit of turnaround time. It depends on like if it's a day like that I'm teaching like today or if it's a preparatory day. But it can take up to a day for me to get back to you. Now, if you scroll down further, you've got your campus contact information. So again, we've got all the campus's main phone numbers here to the main office. I have your lab instructor information. Their emails are listed here. And again, you guys have Melissa Flores. She's the substitute right now for Riverside. Your class schedule is as follows. Be aware that Riverside students are on a different schedule than Huntington Park and Santa Ana. So please make sure that you're just looking at what it says for Riverside, because again, you guys are on a different schedule than the other campuses. And the only reason for that is because of lab instructor availability. So the class and everything else is all the same. Below that, I have linked your lesson plans. I also have these linked on the main page under the objectives tab. We're going to look at these in just a moment. Really important though, I highly recommend if you didn't already grab a printout yesterday in lab, make sure you download it and save it on your computer. This is going to be how you're going to keep track of all of your deadlines and everything going on in the class and what you need to do every single day. Listed below that is some upcoming holidays / campus closures. So please make sure you're writing these in your calendar. Juneteenth is next week. That will affect your schedule because it's on a Thursday. Don't worry, I'll prep you for that next week. I'll let you know. However, In July, we have Independence Day and it falls on a Friday. Now, you guys don't have class on Fridays. You only have class Monday through Thursday, so it does not affect your direct schedule. However, if you've had me before, you know that every single Friday we offer tutoring sessions. Um, so on this Friday, July 4th, we will be closed. The campus will be closed. We will not offer the tutoring sessions on that day. So just be aware it doesn't directly impact your schedule, but it does impact the tutoring schedule. Below that is just the agenda for your asynchronous class, for your morning class, for your online class, for your on-campus class, kind of just showing how we run those classes. The asynchronous class is the most important one for you to be aware of. In all honesty, it's the easiest day to get credit for. Super easy. All you have to do is log in at the start of your class time, check the group messages, watch your video that's been assigned to you, and complete your daily discussion post by the end of your class time. Be aware, y'all are AM students, which means you got to get it done by 12 p.m. My PM students have until the end of their class, which is 10 p.m. to submit it. So just be aware on your asynchronous day, which for Riverside is Mondays. So on Monday, you still have to log in. You still have to log into your course. You still have to do work, or you don't get your attendance points. And let me tell you, do not be the person that loses attendance points on asynchronous days. It's the easiest way to get attendance points. It's also the easiest way to lose attendance points. And trust me, you don't want to be slacking on attendance. You can fail the course just because your attendance is poor. So something to be aware of. You don't want to be missing out on these asynchronous day attendance days. Again, to help you keep track with all of this, under week number 1, here under the objectives tab, and you also saw it under the schedule and contact information tab, there is your lesson plan. So if you click on the one right here that says Riverside RVS lesson plan, it'll download it for you. Again, hopefully you already have it. I make these lesson plans, very detailed lesson plans at the start of every module. And these lesson plans are to help you keep track of where you are, like, so what class do you have that day? What topics are covered in your class? What assignments are due? And any other reminders. So this will map you through every single day in the mod, right? Yesterday, we have today, which is our first Zoom lecture. So and it all goes all the way until the very last day, which is July 8th. So be aware of that. This is a great document to use and to utilize. I even put your holidays in there to remind you of when those are. So you have this lesson plan and you have my daily group messages. There's 2 different ways that you can figure out what's going on in your class. So there's no excuses there. You can't say, I didn't know it was due or I didn't know what was going on. This detailed lesson plan is here for you, and those daily group messages are posted for you as well. So please utilize your resources. If you need it printed out, you can always ask your lab instructor. I'm sure she already had them printed out for you yesterday. But again, really important that you're utilizing this. All right. So in addition to that, I'm just looking at my list over here, making sure that we're checking everything off. I want to continue to take a look at your contents section. So for this module and for all of your VA modules, we use e-textbooks. If you scroll down here to the reading tab, it shows you we're going to be using the e-textbook for Elsevier's veterinary assisting textbook. You're not going to be utilizing this workbook because I have already taken those assignments and made them into online homework assignments. So you don't have to worry about using the workbook. But you will also be using this veterinary instruments and equipment book to help you memorize your surgical equipment in this module. Now, again, all of these are e-text, which means they're here online. And again, you just go under the content section and you click into where it says e-textbook. Now, you'll be reading for this module. Oh, I apologize. Let's go back to that reading tab. I have it linked here. You will be focusing out of chapter 9. So in this Elsevier's veterinary assisting textbook, we're going to be reading chapter 9 for the next 4 weeks. That's what all of your materials is going to be based off of. So when it comes to things like completing your homework, studying for your quiz, both of those will be done through reading your chapter 9. I always have students ask me, how am I going to know the homework questions? The homework questions are pulled directly from your workbook, which is based off of your textbook. Previously, before the pandemic, students would have to fill out answers in the workbook and it would be graded in person. Post-pandemic, things look a little bit different. We're all online now. So I took the hard part out of it. I took the questions out of the workbook and I created them into these online interactive assignments, which they're pretty cute, pretty fun assignments, fill in the blanks or matching activities usually. So just be aware of that. To know your answers here, you've got to read that chapter 9. And to access your e-text, it's really easy. You just click into where it says e-textbook up top here in the content section, and then it's this Elsevier's Veterinary Assisting Textbook 3rd edition. If you're a new student, you'll have to create a login for this website, but once you create a login, it'll give you access to the book. And once you've created it once, again, all you got to do is click on the link, it'll take you right to the book, and it'll automatically log you in. It does take a moment for the e-text to load, so be a little patient. And then again, for this module, we're focusing out of chapter 9, which is anesthesia and surgical assisting. So make sure that you're clicking into where it says chapter 9 here under the table of contents. You can scroll down. This is just all of the subjects that they go over in the module. Learning objectives, and then we have your key terms listed. So just be aware your key terms are right there. You will be doing key terms and sentences in week 4 as your homework. So just be aware of that. Your key terms are right there in the beginning. And then past the key terms, it starts right into the chapters. So reading this entire chapter is critical to being successful in this class. What you read here and what we go over in lecture will match, and it will reflect the skills that you're going to do in your on-campus skills lab. So all of these topics are connected in that way. Again, you'll be introduced to the topics here, and then you'll apply them in person during the labs. Now, when it comes to keeping track of your online assignments, again, the lesson plan is great. I do want to just summarize it for my new students, though. Again, download this lesson plan and use it. But if we take a look here at your assignments, so there's 3 different types of assignments in this module. There's discussion posts, there's quizzes. In week 4, you'll have a final exam, and there's homework. You will do discussions every single day. So Monday through Thursday, every day that you're here in class, you'll be completing a discussion post. And remember, on your asynchronous day on Monday, this is how you get your attendance credit. So you must submit it by the end of your class time on Monday to get your attendance points. If you don't, then you miss out on the easiest attendance points ever. And you don't want to do that. That's silly. If you're going to be absent, you want to save it for a day that you're actually absent from class, not just absent from online. Again, the absences add up really quickly, and you can fail just based off of absences. We will be going over the discussion a little bit later. I will kind of walk through how to do it just to make sure everyone knows where those functions are. But just remember, every single day that you're here in class, you'll be doing a discussion. Now, we do go over them in online class, and your lab instructors will allow you to work on it during lab. So it's important when you go to lab, bring your laptops and everything so that you can work on your assignments. And again, know that you will be provided time in class to work on them. However, I do have students that like to do the assignments early. That's totally fine. I don't have any rules about that. When you were enrolled in the module, you were given full access to the next 4 weeks of your assignments. So all of the assignments are open and can be completed right now. I have students that at the beginning of the week, they don't want to worry about their discussions and they get all of their discussions done on the first day of the week. And if that's you, that's great. If you don't want to do that and you'll just wait until class, that's fine too. You're not going to get a better grade by submitting it early. It's just an option. So please know if you do want to jump ahead and get ahead of it, be my guest. Absolutely, you can complete work early. I don't grade work early, but you can definitely complete it early. That's fine. Now, so that was your daily assignment. So discussions are daily, and then you have weekly assignments, which is going to be your quiz and your homework. Now, for the quiz, I do use Kahoots as the study guide. You can click on the link here or use the game pin to use that as a study guide. It's not graded. You don't have to use it, but it will be helpful for passing that quiz. And then under the homework section, again, we have weekly interactive homework assignments. And these are online assignments, which you just click into them and then you go through the online activity. And it will automatically grade itself. So super easy with those homework assignments. Again, if you want to do this early and all of that, please be my guest. You don't have to wait until the deadline to complete these. And I am really detail oriented. You may have noticed I have dates. I write everything everywhere because I don't want students to come back and say I didn't know it was due or I was confused. So the dates are everywhere. It's super detailed to pretty much guarantee that there can't be any confusion and that it's very clearly labeled for you. So just be aware, I try to put the due dates everywhere. Try to make sure it's super self-explanatory, or that you're able to understand it to do what you need to do in the class. And of course, if you ever have any questions, just send me a message, reach out to me, let me know, and I can answer that for you. But again, daily assignments are your discussion, weekly assignments are your quizzes and your homework. And your end of the week, you can see that up here with the dates, right? They're listed here. And again, you can go into your lesson plan. Your weeks will always be 4 days long. We were just on Monday through Thursday weeks, but with holidays, it does stagger it a little bit. So you guys are right now, you're starting on a Tuesday and you're ending on a Monday. So that means that the end of your weeks are on Mondays right now. So on Monday, it's your asynchronous day, but you're also going to have your quiz and your homework and everything due. So please be aware of that. Do not be slacking off on that Monday or you're going to fall behind really, really quickly. Great question, Noemi had in the chat. So if you finish the asynchronous assignment early or all of our assignments early, can we just log in? Will that still count for attendance? That's correct. If you've already done your discussion, all you need to do is log into the course, because you technically have to watch the lecture video for that day. So you should still be logging into the course and watching the video. But that's correct. So you can complete it early and that's fine, but you still have to log in and access the course on that day, even if you do it early. So again, please make sure you're logging in. And Mondays, again, this is your big deadline. You have your homework and your quizzes due. So be aware, be penciling in extra time for that. If you log in, and only give yourself a few minutes to get your stuff done, you're going to be in a pinched situation there. So just be aware of when your weeks start, when they end, and all of that. Now, I do want to highlight under the content section this helpful how-to videos for LMS, especially for my new starts. I have 2 new students here in the morning class. Hopefully you've already watched a majority of these videos, but if you haven't, this is the recording from yesterday, and don't worry, I'll upload the one from today. You don't have to watch the one from yesterday because it's the same exact stuff we're going over today. But if you scroll past that first video, I have uploaded quick little 10-minute snapshot videos on how to do certain functions in LMS. So how to find the group messenger, how to check your grades, how to do your discussions, how to do your quizzes. There is videos on all sorts of different topics here because I know that you're not going to remember everything from our first session together. So as you're going through and you're doing these assignments, if you're ever like, oh man, how did Mrs. B do that? How did she do the discussion? How did she do the homework? Click into this tab. Again, it's the helpful how-to videos for LMS. It's the second tab that you see here in the module, and you'll find this gold mine of videos that you can access for the course. Again, just to give you a short reminder on how to do whatever function that you're looking at trying to perform. The videos, I upload them using YouTube. I use an unlisted platform, which means that the only way that you can get my videos is if you have the direct link, like in my classes. You can't search me on YouTube or search the videos there. You can only find them here, but it makes it really easy because all you have to do is come in here and press play, and the videos will automatically start playing for you. And you can fast forward and rewind it and go to whatever portion that you're looking for. Now, with that being said, these videos, they don't give you an option to have subtitles. So if you're somebody that likes to have closed captions or subtitles, it's totally fine. You just have to click on the link here to the video. It'll bring it up in, and it's going to open. And then from the YouTube portion, you can press closed captions and have those subtitles. So again, really, really great section, especially if you're brand new. You'll more than likely be using this section quite a bit. And please do, those are there for you. If you message me on how to complete the discussion, the first thing I'm going to ask you is did you watch the video on it first? Because that's what it's there for. Remember, I've got 86 students, so these videos were created to kind of help with the flow of that and to answer those questions. And you can access these videos at any time. Let's look at a little bit more of what's also in the content section before we dive into week number 1. I want to go down to the next section that we haven't looked at yet, the videos and extra course materials section. So this is going to have all of the recorded videos that I use in the lecture PowerPoint. So in some of these videos are even mine. You'll see this is me at the Riverside lab. Might look familiar to you. That's because it's your laboratory. So I even have videos here of wrapping packs. And I've got patient recovery videos, anesthesia videos. You don't have to watch these. They're going to be presented to you when we go over your Zoom lecture, starting next week when we go into Chapter 9 PowerPoint. But if you ever want to go back and you're like, oh, well, where was that video that she showed us? It's going to be right here. This is where I have all of the videos that I show here in class. The next tab right below that is your campus security reports and forms. Now, y'all already signed off on these yesterday. In your first lab, your lab instructor had you sign off on all of these different forms, the dress code, classroom rules, syllabus, campus security reports, all of that. So these are just here in digital form in case you want to download those on your computer and keep them handy. But you already filled them out and they've already been filed, so you don't have to worry about anything here. The last section is on your on-campus skills lab. Now be aware, you were already in lab yesterday, so your lab instructor probably already told you all of this great information, but it is here in case you want to review things like the grading policy, the dress code, the pet waivers, anything like that. So just some quick information here on your skills lab and what you need to know. And that's all of the tabs that you see there. The rest of those are just week 1 through week 4. So that's going to consist of all of your assignments through that time. And you'll notice that when you click into the next weeks, they look identical and they're supposed to. It's not meant to trip you up or confuse you. All of these modules look identical and the assignments are identical. You will always have discussions, homework, and quizzes. That's something that stays consistent throughout all of the 7 learning modules. All right, so what we're going to do next is we are coming up close to 9 a.m. What I do during this online class and what they do in labs as well is we take breaks. Every hour, we usually take for the first break, I like to give a 15-minute break, just because I know y'all are AM students. You're probably wanting to go eat breakfast or get some coffee and stuff like that. So I like to give you guys a good break for the first break. So 15 minutes for the first break, and then for the breaks thereafter, it's usually 10 minutes. Now, taking breaks on Zoom, it's really easy. You don't leave the Zoom room. All you're going to do is mute your camera and mute your audio, and then come back at the time that I put into the chat. So very, very simple. So I'm going to pause the recording now. We'll resume it when we come back from the break. Welcome back from the break, students. The next thing we're going to go into today is we're going to now get into week number 1. Before we get into our subject matter, we need to go over the term project. Every single module, you will have a term project. This project is part of your final exam grade. You'll notice in your syllabus, your final exam is worth 25% of your overall grade, but that's combined with a few different things. So you do have an online final exam, you have a lab final exam. The term project is also a part of that grade. So that 25% kind of gets divided up into a few different assignments, those finals, and then this project. So it basically is there to kind of offset if just in case you don't get a great passing score on your finals, that project summary can definitely help your grade out there. It's worth about 8% of your final grade. So if you don't submit it, that could drop you an entire letter grade. It could be the reason that you pass. It could be the reason that you fail. With that being said, you're always going to have a term project. It does vary. Sometimes it's a essay, sometimes it's a poster board, sometimes it's a PowerPoint. It just depends on the module. For this module, you're going to be writing a summary. And if you click on the hyperlink here for the Learn Term Project Summary, it will bring you into the submittal window, which will this is where you're going to be submitting the assignment. It's in week 3. And again, it's due at the end of week 3, which for y'all, please write this down. This term project is going to be Tuesday, July 1st. That's when it's due, Tuesday, July 1st. And I know that seems like a lot of time. That's like 20 days from now, but it will creep up really, really quickly. So again, please write this down. Term project, really important, worth a lot of your grade, due on Tuesday, July 1st. And you are going to be researching a common animal surgery. That's not just small animal. I have large and small animal surgeries on the list. And then you're going to write a 4-page summary, minimum 4-page. The first page is going to be a cover page. The next 2 pages will be 2 pages minimum of essay content. And then the last page will be a works cited reference page. Now, as always, if you are unsure about writing essays and you would like me to look over your rough draft, I will absolutely do that for you and give you feedback before you submit it at the end of week 3. You would just need to send your project over to my email, which is snielsen@ach.edu. I would need it before the deadline. So since it's due on Tuesday, July 1st, I would need it by that day before, by Monday, in order to have adequate time to give you feedback before submitting. So just be aware of that. If that's something you would like, please send it over to me at any time before the deadline to get some feedback. You can also hang back after class and I can go over it with you together for corrections. You can always come to a Friday tutoring session as well. We've got a lot of opportunity there. Now, in this paper, you're going to be addressing 12 different questions about the surgery that you choose. So you're going to be telling me, why would the animal need the surgery? Is this a common surgery? Is it rare? Is this a surgery that can be prevented? Is it elective? Is it something that we always do? What are possible complications of the surgery? Is this a one-time surgery or do we possibly repeat it in the future? You'll also be describing the surgical procedure. You can include images if you want. That's optional. You don't have to, but you definitely can. You'll then be telling me what surgical instruments are used, if the patient will need to be hospitalized after the procedure. What is your role as a veterinary assistant in helping to treat this animal? What considerations will you discuss with the client for at-home care? If there is any follow-up care, recheck exam, when do we remove the sutures, which it's usually 10 to 14 days post-procedure. And lastly, how would you educate the owner regarding this procedure? So how would you do the consent forms and how would you go over with this with the owner to make them feel comfortable with giving us permission to do that procedure on their animal? So you're answering all of those questions Again, it's a minimum of 2 pages of essay content. It is okay if you go past that. These are a lot of questions. So just know it's okay if you write more, but you at least need to have two. Now, right down below the questions are your MLA format. This is how you're going to be formatting your essay. So MLA format means to have size 12 font, Times New Roman or Arial, double spaced, indented first line of the paragraph, 1-inch margins. Um, you're going to have a header / a page number. You're going to have a cover sheet, which is going to include the following information with a picture of your topic. You'll have your essay content, which should be introduction paragraph, body paragraphs, and conclusions. And then you'll have a references works cited page. And I apologize, the spacing is kind of off here. I did try to go in and fix it yesterday, and I thought it was all good. I might have to re-upload this section, so I do apologize that the spacing is a little weird here, but you'll be doing a references works cited page. You can use easybib.com. This is a really great citation generator. I use easybib.com and have for many, many, many years. All you would need to do is take whatever web link from the website that you're researching for your paper, and you would put it into this easybib.com, and it will automatically generate the citation for you, and it'll let you know what information is needed. If you've never done a works cited page before, don't worry. I have an example down below, and it's going to show you exactly what it needs to look like. But you can do the works cited on your own. You don't have to use EasyBib. A works cited just needs to include the author, the title, the date published, the publication, the page numbers, and the web link. That's what's in a works cited. Now, you will be using several sources for your research for this project. And that's the whole point of the works cited is you're giving credit to those sources that you're using. One of the sources that you use should be from Learn Library Manual or Google Scholar. So one source should be a scholarly article. Again, you can use Learn. You can use the login information here to access Learn. I also have a video on how to use Learn under the helpful how-to video section because it's a little hard to navigate it. If you've never navigated Learn before, you have to select into certain websites from Learn to then be able to then research your topic. So please go watch my video on it if you would like to use Learn. You could always just use Google Scholar as well. Again, one of your articles should be a scholarly resource. Posted down below that, I do have a quick video on how to set up MLA format in Google Docs. A majority of you will be using Google Docs for your essay, which is great. I love Google Docs. I also have a helpful how-to video on how to use Google Docs and upload it to the module for submission. So know that that's there as well. So this will help you get it set up with like your double spacing and your indentations and all of that, page numbers. So you can use that to help kind of find those tools. And then right below the video, two very important links that are here. I've got a term project example. So this is a previous essay from a student that I had in my class before who did a great job on their essay. And again, this is what it's supposed to look like. So if you're wondering, like, what is it supposed to look like? What is it supposed to sound like? Come read through this example. And again, the works cited page is here. Be aware that the student didn't fill out the full 2 pages. You have to do 2 full pages for your full credit. So this is just here to show you kind of the formatting and how it's supposed to look. And you can use that as an example. The next document that's linked underneath it is your grading rubric. And the grading rubric is going to break down how I grade your project. So this is out of 100 points, and I break it up into 4 categories. So your cover page is worth 10 points. Your header, which is your page number, is 5 points. Your essay content, which is those 12 questions plus your formatting, is 60 points. And a whopping 25 points is that works cited page. The works cited page is worth a lot of points. And the reason that it's worth a lot of points is because, again, you have to complete this works cited page to give credit to the author of the information that you're using, right? You're going to be doing a lot of research for this paper. If you don't do a works cited page, I do not accept your paper. I do not accept any papers without a works cited page because it's technically plagiarism. Plagiarism is a fancy word for cheating. And if you are using information from a website and submitting it as your own work and not giving credit to the sources, That's cheating. That's plagiarism. That's stealing someone else's work. That's grounds for dismissal from my program. There's a very easy way to avoid that. And that's by doing that works cited and giving credit to those sources that you're using. And again, if you're unsure about it, you're not sure exactly how to do it, come attend a tutoring session. Come talk to me after class. Send me your essay and I can overlook it and I can help you out with that. But again, you must have that works cited page or I won't accept your submission. And it's worth a lot of points because you need to do it correctly. That is also very important as well. Now, in your works cited, it is a minimum of 3 sources. And then again, one source must be from a scholarly article using something like Google Scholar or Learn. And that's your term project. I didn't see any questions in the chat, so I'm just going to move right into showing you all the topic list. So I've got, there's 2 pages here. There's this page, and then there's a second page. And these are all different surgical procedures in animals. So you can select any of the topics that you see here. Now, as you're taking a look at this list, I would like you to write down your top 3 topics, which are the ones that you would like to do the most. I am going to go down my list of students. I will call my students name by name. So I'll call you one by one. And I'll have you type in the chat the topic you want to do, and I'll write your name down on this list. Now, I do this by seniority rules. So my seniors will be first. And then my new students, I'm sorry, you will be the last to select, but don't worry, you will have your time when you are first. I promise. This is how we've always ran the topics for these modules. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it on this page for a few minutes. Please write down whatever, again, at least 3 topics that stand out to you. That way, if somebody picks the topic you initially want to do, you have a few backups in mind. Also, if you don't know what to pick, I can pick for you. If you would prefer for me to pick for you, let me know and I will do that too. So just be aware of that. If you're kind of, really have no idea what you want to do, I can assist you with that. So I'll leave it on this page for a few minutes and then I'll slowly scroll to the second page so you guys can see the second page. And then I will go through my list of students to have you guys select your topics. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave it here for a few minutes. I am going to pause the recording during this time, just because it's going to take us quite a bit to get through all these topics. So I will pause it for the meantime. Okay, now that we're done selecting term projects, we're going to go into your daily materials, which is going to be the discussion and the PowerPoint materials for today. So we will always go over your discussion post every time we come together here for class in lecture. And as I was saying to the students earlier, the lectures are usually 2 to 3 hours in length. The last hour of lecture is to be dedicated for you to work on your online work, to come get tutoring from me after class. And it's also set aside for me to meet with seniors, meet with failing students, and to do grading and prep. So be aware of that. The lectures are usually 2 to 3 hours in length. Now, the discussion for today, we are in day 2. And again, I try to do a really good job of labeling everything so you're never confused on what day is what. So we are in AHA Anesthesia Guidelines Part 1. That's the abbreviation you see there, AAHA, that's AHA. And AHA is it's the American Animal Hospital Association. They are a veterinary association that essentially sets really high standards and guidelines in the medical field for veterinary professionals that we have to follow if your hospital wants to be AHA accredited. Pre-pandemic, only like 20% of veterinary hospitals were AHA accredited. Post-pandemic, I would say to closer to like 40 or 50% of hospitals are AHA accredited. A little bit about AHA is that, again, they require you to be doing medical care at a higher standard. We take more detailed notes and we fill out more forms, and we just have to run the hospital at a really high caliber. Again, not all hospitals are AHA accredited. When hospitals are AHA accredited, they, of course, can charge more for their services because they're doing more in-depth and comprehensive review of their services. Also, I personally would not work at a hospital that's not AHA accredited. And that's my personal opinion from going from hospitals that were versus weren't. And hear me out. The reason why is because, again, with AHA, they have to follow a set guideline. And they're very strict standards, and the patient care will always be really, really good. And I'm not saying that the patient care is not good with hospitals that aren't accredited. They just don't have a supervising body that's going to be supervising them and making sure that they're following all the rules and doing all the things. And so AHA has that higher level of accountability, which I really like as working for a hospital that's like that. And that's just my opinion, but you will be able to create that for yourself as you start to work in the veterinary field, and you may work for a hospital that is or isn't. That being said, there's a little bit of a anesthesia guidelines. There's quite a bit of anesthesia guidelines we have to follow in accordance with AHA. There is certain anesthesia forms and stuff that have to be filled out by the doctor and submitted. And again, I really like this because it's done in a really high level of detail. And that's what I would want for my animal. That's what I would want to give for someone else's animal. So with that being said, there's a little bit of a blurb about anesthesia guidelines. And again, anesthesia is the drugs that we will use to place the patient in an anesthetic state. Meaning that they're not going to be able to feel pain. They'll be basically in like a sleeping state, a sedative state while they are being operated on. There's many different sides to anesthesia, and we're going to dive into it a lot more throughout the rest of this module. But like I said, with AHA, we have to follow like a step-by-step kind of guide approach and follow very strict guidelines. Now, for this discussion, you're going to be reviewing an article, and that's linked right down here below, this anesthesia guidelines article. So you'll click into that link, and it'll bring you to this AHA article about anesthesia guidelines for dogs and cats. It's about 9 pages in length. Little lengthy here, but honestly, the last 2 pages are basically sources and all of that. So it's about 8 pages, seven pages. So again, it's going to talk about pre-surgery, during surgery, post-surgery, what is the equipment you need, the checklist, the tools, all of that, what to be aware of, high-risk patients. So you're going to read that article, and then you're going to respond to the questions that are here. To post your discussion, you can hand write this and use Adobe Scan to post it. And I have a video about using Adobe Scan in my helpful how-to video section if you want to hand write it. I prefer that you type it. That's just personal preference because then you don't have to worry about uploading the right files and having it show up and this and that. That being said, you totally can do it handwritten. I just have to be able to read your handwriting. If I can't read your handwriting, then I cannot grade it. It's really easy though when you go to submit. You're just going to scroll down to the bottom of those questions and then press this blue add discussion topic button. This is really important, you guys. I want everybody paying attention to this part. When you post your answers, what I would like you to do is please copy all of the questions and put them down below in the message box. So you're going to have your questions and then write your answers after. So that's required. You have to have these questions in here and then put the answers after. This is the required formatting for discussions. It has to be labeled. I don't want to see students just submitting paragraphs of information and it's not labeled. The reason why I recommend you have the question too, because I have students that are like, well, can't I just put one and then the answer? Here's why I say no to that. You can use these as study tools for later. But if you only have the answers written down and you don't have the questions with it, you're going to have no idea what the assignment was even on. It's going to be worthless to you. You're going to have no idea. So in order to have this be usable information for you for later, have the questions and write the answers after. You never know when you might want to go back and review this, especially before you go to externship. So please make sure that you're posting your answers in this way. For the subject, you just need to put the day. It's day number 2 today, so you can just write day 2. And again, put the questions, write your answer after. Before you go to submit this, save it in a Google Doc. Save it in Google Doc, go save it in a Microsoft Word if you have that, or even a notes portion, something on your computer. Do not just write all your answers here and press submit and not have it saved somewhere else. The reason why is because you could possibly lose all of your work. LMS is not perfect and sometimes it errors out. If you've been on a web page for too long, which you might be if you're doing all the research and trying to get your answers posted, the last thing I want is for you to write it all here, press post to forum to submit it, and then there's an error code and none of it submits and you lose all your work. Because guess what? If it doesn't submit here, there's nothing I can do. I can't retrieve it for you. If it didn't actually submit, there is nothing that I can do. My answer to you would be that you'd have to redo it. And trust me, you don't want to have to redo a discussion. Save yourself from that heartache. So learn from my previous students and save your discussions. I have a lot of students that just do it on a running Google Doc. So I use Google Doc here for the project list. I have students that just do it on a running Google Doc and they just do each discussion one after another on the same document for every module to keep it organized for them. That's a great option. But however way you want to do it to where you're keeping record of all of your stuff, and again, saving it so just in case it doesn't submit properly, you have your work that you can just resubmit. So to submit this for grading, down below, it says post to forum, this blue post to forum button, you'll select that. It'll refresh the page and it'll tell you right up here up top, your post was successfully added. You're good to go. If you don't see this, it did not submit. And if to double check that it's there, you can scroll down. Your post should be the very first one that's listed. And if you don't see your post there, that means it didn't actually submit. Now, it does give you an hour to make changes if you want to make changes to your post. Like, let's say you did your post before you came to class, and then we were going over it together, and then you realized you got an answer wrong. It won't let you edit it if it's been past an hour, but don't worry. If you need to resubmit with corrected answers, just resubmit it as a whole. Just resubmit the entire assignment with your corrected answers. I will grade whatever has been the most recently submitted. So when I go to grade these, it's going to pop up the one that you most recently submitted first. And that will always be the one that I automatically grade. So just be aware of that. You don't have to freak out if it won't let you make changes. Just make a whole new post with your corrections. So with that being said, I want to give you all some time to work on this. I always give independent work time in my classes to my students. So during these independent work times, you are supposed to be at your desk with your cameras on, working on your assignment. Now, if you've already done the discussion, because I know that I have students that like to get it done early, now is a great time to work on your homework, to work on anything else in the class, to take a look through the next 4 weeks, to get your lesson plan downloaded, to download the PowerPoint. There are things that you can be working on during this time. Sorry, guys, I'm just seeing that I had like a ton of messages in the chat. If you guys need to break and come back, that's totally fine. Devin, that's totally fine if you need to rejoin. You're all good. And then Amory, thanks for letting me know. You're totally fine. No problem, you guys. You're all good. And I'm going to give you guys some independent work time right now. Again, you're supposed to be on camera doing your work. And if you've already finished it, there are other things to work on. There's plenty other things, especially with the end of the week being Monday. Maybe go take a look at your weekly assignments into those homework assignments. I like to give usually 10 to 15 minutes of independent work time. Because this is an article, I'll give you guys about 15 minutes. Once that work time is done, we will transition into our next item on the agenda, which is going through your slides. And hopefully we'll be able to make it through all the slides we want to today. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping that we can. So with that being said, it's 9:47. I'm going to give you guys independent work time until around 10, and then I'll check in with y'all around 10, see how we're doing. We'll probably do another break, and then we'll get into our slides after. So I'll let you guys have your independent work time until around 10, and then I'll check in with y'all and we'll transition after that. Alrighty, students. It's right around 10 o'clock. I hope you guys, that was enough time to be working on those discussions. If you're not finished, don't worry. We're going to transition right into our break. And when we come back from the break, we'll be starting your PowerPoint slides. Again, that is for the equipment and materials identification. We're going to try to get through the first 49 slides this morning. But with that being said, I'm just going to post the link in the chat. You can download this from the module as well, but we are going to break until 10:15, and then we're going to come back and we'll start the PowerPoint at that time. Alrighty, students, we're going to come back into our main classroom. Welcome back from your break. Welcome back, welcome back. All right, students, we are going to get into our slides here. Again, to be aware, as we get into these slides, I am just going to be reviewing the slide information. I will be going a little bit quick through these slides because I have to try to get done as many as we can, and be aware that this is like a prelude into your materials for next week. So we will be going over all of these subjects again when we come back into lecture next week. So this is just kind of an introduction. You will take these slides and use them in your lab to help you memorize these surgical tools. So you're going to apply all of this in person in your labs, and then again, use this as memorization tools. So I'm going to introduce to you kind of topics around these. You might have already seen some of these laboratory tools yesterday when you were in your first lab. You might not have, I'm not sure. So we're going to go over these instruments together. And again, I'm going to do this briefly. So you might feel like, oh my gosh, you're flipping through the slides really quickly. Yes, we are going to be going quickly to try to cover all of them. And you're going to come back to this PowerPoint and use it as a study guide as you're studying these instruments in lab. So don't worry, you're going to come back to this PowerPoint over and over and over, I'm sure, throughout the rest of this module. Now, this is a supplemental PowerPoint. This is not based off of your chapter 9. That's what we're going to start next week, but it's still really great information, which is why I still like to use it in the course. And again, it's going to help you with memorizing all of these surgical instruments. So, I do have limited amount of time. I'm going to lecture until around 10:50, and then at 10:50 I'm going to dismiss my students and meet with my seniors briefly, and then I have to use the rest of my time as my grading block because I have to get those grades submitted by noon and they're not done yet. So I am on a little bit of a time crunch, you guys, just with how the schedule worked out for this module, unfortunately. So be aware of that I'll lecture and we will get through as many slides as possible. And then we will, if there's any left over that we didn't get to, I'll just have you guys watch the recording that I have on LMS. Okay, let me get my screen shared here. We'll get the recording started again. All right. And as I said, we're going to try to do the first 50 slides. Okay, alrighty, let me do this slideshow here. We'll get started. Alrighty, students. So we are going to get into our equipment and materials identification PowerPoint. Again, this is supplemental to help you memorize all of your instruments in your lab to get you familiarized with these materials. And we will go into these all of the equipment that you see today, we're going to be talking about it later in our next few Zoom lectures together. We're going to go into it in more depth. So again, today it's just an introductory. I will be going a little bit quickly because I'm going to try to get through as many slides as we possibly can within the next 20 to 30 minutes. And then you'll be watching the rest of it during your asynchronous day. All right. So in this PowerPoint, we're going to be going over a lot of different tools and instruments and identifying them. I am going to give you a brief summary of what these tools do and the differences that will help you when memorizing them. A lot of these tools, at a glance, they look the same. They look really, really similar. So I'm going to point out to you the details and what you should be looking at to differentiate between your different tools, how to distinguish between them. So in the next few slides, we're going to be looking at forceps or hemostats. We'll look at different scissors. We'll look at scalpel blades and needles, and we'll look at different miscellaneous surgical equipment. So the first tools that we're going to look at is forceps and hemostats, and I'm going to have a There's a slide for every single hemostat that you see listed here. It'll have a picture of the tool and a little bit of information about each one. The first one we're looking at here is alligators. Alligator forceps are used to remove foreign bodies during surgery. So usually we're using this to remove stuff out of the ear or the back of the throat or even in the nose. It's a really, really long tool with a little opening and closing jaw at the end. And I think about it like an alligator's mouth, like a little open and closing jaw. And these are the only tool that you'll use that look like this, that have this weird, really, really long, and then just a little tiny opening at the end. Those are your alligators. The next tool that you'll see here, these are ALIS tissue hemostatic forceps. These are used to grasp organs and slippery, dense tissue. Now, these hemostats, they're called hemostats because they have a ratchet, they have a locking mechanism that's down here, right by where you hold the tool. And what I want you to look at is you're going to see differences in the jaw. At the very tip of the tool, that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the differences that we see here because that's going to help you differentiate between these different tools. Again, upon first glance, they all look similar. So ALIS tissue forceps have little teeth at the end of this tool. There is another type of tissue forcep, and those are Babcocks. The difference here is Babcocks are smooth at the end. And we use Babcocks to hold more delicate tissue, right? Because the ALIS tissue with those teeth, that would totally lacerate and tear through delicate tissue. So again, ALIS has teeth, Babcock is smooth. The next hemostats we're going to look at here are cryos. Again, we're going to look at the jaw. There are serrations that go all the way up the jaw of this tool. And that's how you're going to tell the difference between cryos and Kelly's. Again, they look exactly the same, but Kelly's serrations only go up halfway the jaw, and then it's smooth the rest of the way. So again, cryos have serrations going all the way up. Kelly's only have them going halfway up, and then it's smooth. We use hemostats to occlude bleeding before ligation. So it'll stop the bleeding and close off the blood vessel before, let's say, for example, before the doctor removes the organ, like if they were doing a spay, they would ligate off that uterus and close it off before removing that organ. And these hemostats is what they would use to stop that bleeding. Now, there is one more type of hemostat, and these are Halsted mosquito hemostats. And yes, they do have serrations going all the way up the jaw, just like your cryos do. The difference is mosquitoes are small. Think of little buzz, little tiny mosquitoes. These hemostats are little tiny. That's the main difference. You're going to look at the cryo and the Kelly and the mosquito next to each other. It's about 2 inches smaller, shorter than the other tools. Again, the serrations run all the way up the jaw, just like the cryos, but because they're smaller, they're mosquitoes. The next tool we're looking at here are Brown-Adson thumb forceps. Thumb forceps do not have a locking mechanism, and in fact, they look really similar to tweezers. These tools are used to grasp, hold tissue, muscle, and skin. For Brown-Adson, they have little fine serrations up here at the jaw. There's no teeth or anything, but there's these little fine serrations. Versus the other type of thumb forceps that we use are called rat tooth, and they actually have, it looks like a little tooth at the end of the jaw. So again, the really easy tool to memorize. It's one of the only ones that has what it looks like a literal tooth at the end. So again, Brown-Adsons have those little fine serrations. Rat tooth have the actual tooth clamping mechanism at the end. Our next category of tools that we're going to look at, or instruments, is scissors. We use scissors to cut material and through tissue. The first scissors that you're looking at here are suture wire cutting scissors. As you can see, there's this little indent here in the scissors. That's where you would want the wire to go before you then clamp down to cut the wire. Now, we use wire sutures primarily when wiring shut like a patient's jaw. Let's say they had a fracture of their jaw. We might use the wire to wire their jaw shut, allow it to heal, and then we'll remove the wire once it's been repaired. Now, you won't be removing wire sutures. If anybody removes it, it'll be the doctor. And we usually do this while the patients are sedated. The wires are embedded into the jaw, so it's not something that we can do when they're alive and awake. The next set of scissors here are Lister bandage scissors. If you were in last module, module 104, you know all about Lister bandage scissors because this is what you use to cut off bandages from your patient. Now, these are special scissors. You cannot just use any scissors to cut off a bandage. These scissors have a little butt at the bottom of their bottom blade. So it's longer than the top blade. You see that little butt that's there? That is to help go under the bandage and make a way for those scissors without cutting the skin. If this was a sharp tip or if there was no extra tip at the end, the skin can fold up and over and you could easily cut right through the skin as you're just trying to cut a bandage off. And obviously, we don't want to be cutting the skin and injuring the patient if we're removing a bandage. That's a very easy procedure. Shouldn't be injuring them at all. So using these bandage scissors is critical for that. If you use standard scissors, you will cut their skin. The next scissors we're looking at here are Litauer suture removal scissors. So we use these to remove sutures that are placed during surgery. Usually suture removal is about 10 to 14 days post-surgery. It has this little hook or like little crescent moon shape at the bottom of this tool. That's what hooks underneath the suture. And then you'll cut it to cut the suture and then use hemostats to pull it out of the patient's skin. And you will do suture removals as an assistant. That's definitely a main part of your job. The doctor will usually do a recheck exam for patients that need sutures removed. Once they check the incision and they deem that the incision's healed and they're ready to have the sutures removed, then you will come and remove those sutures. The next set of scissors here are Mayo dissecting scissors. And I like to think of mayo as mayo is a short and clunky word, right? It's mayo, M-A-Y-O, short little word here. These are short and clunky scissors. We use mayo scissors to cut body tissues and sutures in surgery. They do have blunt ends, so they're not sharp. They're little blunt ends at the end of these tools. And again, it's a short, clunky looking scissor. Those are your mayo. Versus the other scissors that they use in surgery are Metzenbaums. And I always think of Metzenbaum nice and long. That's just how I've been able to memorize those. So again, Mayo is short and clunky. Metzenbaum, nice and long. Look at how long the handles are on this tool. Really long. Even the blades are like long and slender. So these are used to cut delicate tissue in surgery. They're longer and more narrow than your Mayo scissors. But those are the two primary ones that your doctors will use in surgery. Each one should be in a surgical pack. All right, on to our next set of instruments. We're going to talk a little bit about scalpel blades, handles, suture needles, Mayo holders. So basically all of the suturing, making the incision and then closing of that incision. So scalpels, these blades will come individually wrapped and sterilized. These blades are a one-time use. Once we use them, they are going right into that sharps container to be disposed of. We are not re-sterilizing or reusing blades. They are way too sharp. They are way too dangerous. And be aware, these come right out of the package extremely sharp. I will cut right through your finger like nothing. Because they're used in surgery, right? They're supposed to cut right through the skin. That's the whole point. So be aware of that. These are nothing to mess around with. Your doctors, though, should be the one handling the scalpel blade. You should not have to handle this scalpel blade except for grabbing the correct size, opening it, and giving it to the doctor, and they'll take it right out of the packaging. They'll take the scalpel, and as you can see, it's got this little hollow in the middle of the blade. It's all hollow. That is because that's what's going to fit into the end of their scalpel handle. So this is where they hold the handle. And then this tip at the end is what filters into the gap on these blades to basically snap the blade into place on this handle. So you can use any blade that you want on your handle. They all have the same, as you can see, the same insert. So you can use any blade that you want. Doctors are responsible for placing the blade on their scalpel and for removing the blade from their scalpel. So please, when you're cleaning up from surgery, that's a big part of your job, is cleaning up and turning over the surgical suite for the next one. Please make sure that you look at the surgical pack before you lift it up. Before you pick it all up and go to put it in the sink to have it be washed, double check that those scalpel blades are gone. Also double check that any suture needles are gone as well. You need to double check that the sharps are not there. If you pick up a surgical pack and there are sharps, you could get injured, especially if there's blades. If there's blades, these blades are so sharp. So please make sure, take a visual look at the pack first before you pick it up and move it to the sink. If you notice that the sharps are still intact, do not remove them yourself. Notify the doctor. The doctor should be the only person dealing with those sharps. Now, these are sutured needles. This is what the suture material will be attached to, and this is what the doctor will use to loop and filter through the skin to make those nice sutures. Now, there's different types of sutured needles. This one is a triangular tipped needle. So this is called a cutting needle, and it's used to close the skin and subcutaneous tissue. Since subcutaneous tissue can be rougher, that cutting edge is really good for that, especially like cat's skin. Cats have really, really tough skin, especially if they're not neutered. So a cutting edge suture needle would be great, would be preferred. For inner tissue, for like the inner muscular layers and soft tissue, we use a taper suture needle. So this has more of like a blunt edge on the tip. There's no cutting edge. And it's, again, we use this for more of your soft tissue. So think of like fascia, gastrointestinal tissue, vascular tissue. They will suture those tissues internally first before they do the external suture. So there's two sets of sutures always with a surgical procedure. There's different types of suture material. We're going to talk more about suture materials next week. And you'll get to see them in your labs as well, the different types of sutures. You don't really need to know the differences between sutures. You just need to know what their names are and how to identify them, how to identify the packaging, because you'll be grabbing these sutures for the doctor and opening them for them. Now, when they're placing the sutures, they use a tool that's called a needle holder. The one that you're looking at here is a Mayo Hagar needle holder. And yes, it looks like a hemostat, but again, look at the jaw of the tool. Instead of those vertical serrations, this has a crisscross pattern, right? It's like a checkerboard. The reason that it has this type of a pattern on the jaw is because these are used to clamp down and hold the needles while they're threading it through the patient's skin and subcutaneous tissues. So this needle holder, has to have really good grip, which is why you see the checkerboard pattern. Now, a doctor could use a Mayo Hagar needle holder and then Mayo scissors. They would use the Mayo Hagar to put in the sutures and then the scissors to cut the sutures as they're making the knots. Or they can use a combination tool, which is our Olsen Hagars. And again, this is a needle holder tool with scissors combined. So it's a 2-in-1 tool. That being said, it's all doctor's preference. Some doctors like the 2-in-1 tool. Others like to have their separate tools. They both work the same. They both get the same job done. It's just a matter of preference. And you're going to notice that with a lot of different things in surgery, that it really just depends on what the surgeon wants, especially with tools with preferences like that. So if you're ever unsure, just ask, and they will let you know exactly what tool they want you to open. And this is why you need to know your tools. This is why we're going to talk about it so much in this module. And we're going to be going over surgical tools often because you need to know what they are. You need to be able to identify them because when the doctor asks you to open up a Olsen Hager needle holder, you need to know what that is. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do your job. So again, download this PowerPoint. It's going to be really helpful for you later. Okay, now we're going to go into some miscellaneous surgical tools. The first surgical tool that you see here, again, it's got that ratchet or that locking mechanism, just like hemostats and those needle holders, but these are called backhouse towel clamps. We use these to secure drapes and towels on our patient during surgery so that they're not moving around everywhere. And to give you a better visualization, I'm talking about drapes like this. We'll drape the patient with surgical drapes or towels, and then you'll use the clamps to clamp these drapes down so that they're not sliding all over the place and they're staying in place while the patient's under anesthesia. So that's what those towel clamps are for. The next tool that you see here is a Snook ovariohysterectomy hook. An ovariohysterectomy is a spay procedure. Ovario is the ovaries, hyster stands for uterus, ectomy is the surgical removal of something. So our spay is the surgical removal of the ovaries and the uterus in our females. Now, this hook that you see here, the Snook hook, its primary use is to hook the horn of the uterus. So the doctor will make this small incision, like 1 or 2 inches wide, and they will use this hook to basically fish around the abdomen to try to find the uterine horn. Once they've hooked around it, they'll be able to pull it out through the incision. Then they can ligate off and start to remove that organ. We don't really use this tool for any other surgery. It's primarily for your spay procedures. The next tool that you see here is a staple removal. Now, staples are a type of suture that a doctor can use. These staple removers are used to remove those staples post-surgery once the incision has been healed, just like suture removal scissors. They work really similar, and it shouldn't be causing pain to remove these from the patient, just like removing a suture shouldn't. However, you're probably not going to deal with these very much. Not a lot of doctors use staples, and it's purely because of cosmetic reasons. Staples can look a little bit more intense. And when the owner picks their animal up and brings them home, all they look at is the incision and the shave job. And they will quite literally judge the hospital based off of those two things. So a lot of new grads and new veterinarians are straying away from staples and going more towards those sutures just because it's a cleaner, nicer look. They work exactly the same. It's not like sutures are better than staples. They work the same. They're both great. Pet owners just tend to react poorly to staple placement versus suture placement. But if you work in ER, if you work in emergency medicine, you will still see staples because sometimes we just have to place it right then and there and we're in a rush, we're in an emergency scenario. So you'll still see those in emergency or urgent care med, not as much in general practice. The next topic here is our anesthetic machines. Now, we're going to talk about these so much in detail, so don't you worry. We're not going to really talk too much about them today, but what I will say is this is what we hook the patients up to, and this is what will administer them the anesthetic gas. That's what will keep them in that anesthetic state while they're under anesthesia. We do use 2 different types of gas in the veterinary field. There's sevoflurane and isoflurane. Sevoflurane is the newer drug that's on the market. It is fantastic. It wakes patients up quicker. They tend to have less side effects. Isoflurane is still great and is used often. But you will see there's two different types, and the machines are specific for the drug that you're using. So I know that it's hard to see here, but this says use only isoflurane. So you cannot use SIVO in an ISO machine or vice versa. Has to be the machine that's made for that specific drug. And again, we'll get into so much more about anesthetic machines in your chapter 9. Probably week 3 or week 4. The next topic here is endotracheal tubes. This is the tube that you will be placing down the patient's trachea, which is their airway. This is what we connect to the anesthetic machine to give them oxygen and anesthetic gas during the surgery. This is how we keep them anesthetized. Now, you might be placing an ET tube, or you'll just be restraining and helping. Typically, assistants don't place them. Typically, it's technicians or doctors. But if you work at a surgical center, the doctor can teach you how to do this. And as long as the doctor is present in the room, you are legally allowed to place ET tubes. But again, it kind of just depends on where you're working and if they need you for that placement or not. Now, we have smaller to larger tubes. There's all sorts of different sizes, and we size the patient based off of how big their nasal nares are. So we'll look at how big their openings are, and we'll also take in consideration the weight of the patient. How large is that patient? And we'll grab a few different sizes because what we initially think might work might not be the one that works. And we want one that fits pretty snug, that's a pretty good size for that trachea. We don't want it being too small or too large. And you'll learn more about these in your lab. You'll get to also practice placing them in our dummy animals and inflating the cuff and doing all of that stuff, tying them in. So you'll get a pretty good adequate practice with these. The next topic here is our surgical drapes. So you will be draping the patient with drapes and towels before their surgical procedure, before the doctor makes their incision. So once you do the surgical scrub, then we'll be placing the drapes, and this is a fenestrated drape, which means it has that opening already created in the drape. This is also a reusable drape, which means that after the surgery, we can wash it and re-sterilize it and reuse it over and over again. There are drapes that are one-time use, disposable drapes. It's just hospital preference. It's whatever your hospital has in stock. Both work just equally as fine. The surgical drapes are used to prevent contamination of that surgical area. So to maintain that sterile field and maintain that sterile environment. Now I'm talking a little bit about sterilization. So you will be using sterilization instruments to sterilize. So these sterilizing machines, they're called autoclaves. You will use them to sterilize your instruments, your gowns, your towels, anything that will not be melted by heat or steam can go into a steam autoclave that looks like this. There is an autoclave at every campus, so you can take a look at the one that is there. This is a steam autoclave, so it uses high heat and pressure to sterilize the equipment. And sterilization means 100% clean. It is the cleanest of clean that you could ever get something. And like I said, because it's a steam autoclave, this is more reserved for instruments, gowns, towels. Emergency or specialty hospitals, there's also gas sterilizers, and I will talk about that more in chapter 9. There are gas sterilizers that you will be using that can sterilize items that are plastic that could melt if you were to put them in a steam autoclave. So you won't see that in like general practice, but if you work for like a big specialty center or a surgical center, they will definitely have a gas one. Now, when we put packs into the autoclave, we're going to be wrapping the instruments and wrapping the gowns and towels in what we call surgical packs, and you'll learn how to do those in your labs. Then we are going to tape them closed with indicator tape. Now, before the tape goes into the autoclave, it's got these little diagonal lines on the tape, but they are the same color as the tape before it goes in. When it gets put into the autoclave and it's exposed to the high levels of heat, the stripes on the tape turn black or brown. Basically, they just turn dark. And that indicates that the contents of the pack have been properly sterilized. So it basically is a double check system to let us know, yes, your sterilizer is working properly. Now, in addition to indicator tape, we also use indicator strips. These are called OK strips, and they will go inside of the surgical pack. So the tape on the outside will let us know that the heat penetrated the outside. The tape or this strip that goes on the inside will indicate that it's actually penetrated through the full pack and sterilized all of it. Now, same thing with the indicator tape. There's actually a K and an arrow right here on the strip. It looks just like this on the box. And when it's exposed to heat, it says K and arrow match black O when steam processed. So once it goes through the autoclave and it's been sterilized properly, the K and the arrow will turn black and you'll see it just like this on the OK strip. If it's discolored or it didn't turn all the way black, like it only did halfway, or if it's kind of splotchy, that could mean that there's an issue with our autoclave. So we check both of those. We check the indicator tape and the indicator strip. Another method to sterilize instruments is a cold sterile tray. This is usually used for what we would call dirty procedures, which is things like wound repair, abscess drainage and repair, right? Those are already dirty wounds that have germs and bacteria present. So we typically use cold sterile tray for these. We don't usually put animals that have wounds and abscesses in the surgical suite because that's a super sterile, clean environment. We don't want to be introducing bacteria in there. So usually we'll sedate patients down and then use a cold sterile tray to do that wound repair. And that's basically instruments that are in this tray that are sterilized by the chemicals that are in this tray. When we remove the instruments, we just rinse them off under water really quickly, wear gloves, and then the doctor can use them with that patient for that wound repair. Okay, the next topics is going to be examination and diagnostic tools. And we're actually going to stop right here. There's only 12 slides left that I want you guys to review. So we got through a majority of them. There's only a few more before technically part 2. So what I'm going to have you all do for the rest of your class, let me stop the screen share. I will reshare it. I just want to get the web page back up. Oh, hello. Come here. Okay. So I am going to have you guys, you can download this PowerPoint and just review those slides. Again, we stopped on slide 38. I wanted to try to get to 49 today. That's okay. We're just a little short on time. So you can either download the PowerPoint and just review those slides, or come down to the second video and press play here and just watch out until it's at the 50 slide mark, or the 49 mark. I apologize. Okay, so that's what I'm going to have all the students do for the remainder of the class time. Again, I have to meet with my seniors and then I have to submit final grades. So I'm on a little bit of a time crunch today. I do apologize. I'm not normally on a time crunch like this. It just happened that way with the teaching schedule with this mod. So with that being said, all of my students are free to go for the day. You are done with your class for the day. Thank you so much.